Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Or how about what's another great Canadian rock riff? Let me know. I mean, there's so many Rush ones. Like there's like, or I don't know. Anyways, there's lots. There's lots of Rush riffs. Anyways, happy Sunday, everybody. How's it going? What's with all the Canadian stuff? The Juno Awards are tonight. Sunday, March 20. What's the 29th today? Anyways, I think the Juno Awards are tonight. I hope I got that right. I heard that there's gonna be some kind of special thing happening, some special surprise by maybe one of the bands I just played a song by. Isn't "Fly By Night" like the most Canadian sounding song ever? Hang on. I don't know. When I hear the opening of that song and Geddy singing and with the bass line running and all the amazing drum fills that were so original by Neil, it just sounds so Canadian. It sounds like that to me that defines Canadian rock. "Fly By Night" by Rush. I don't know. It's got that 70s vibe. It's got that really bad Canadian CBC movie feel to it. You know what that feel is? You know that feel like that was like Face Off with Art Hindle. That movie. Remember that movie? It's got that kind of feel. That song, or those really bad movies about the guy who comes from Newfoundland and tries to make it in the big city. And I saw there's a terrible movie called Dream on the Run. Anybody see that movie? These were the things we had to watch because there was no other channels. We had to watch the CBC. This is when I was growing up, because and I'm going to talk about the Juno Awards and reminisce a little bit because, me being the age that I am, and hopefully a lot of my viewers here are too. I know a lot of you are. Do you guys remember those old Juno Award shows? When Alex Lifeson and Kim Mitchell got up there and joked around, and there was that very faithful remark they made about Leona Boyd, and I'm not going to repeat that, by the way, because I'm trying to be the family show. But Kim was interesting, a guy in the 70s, very very cool, and I think Kim Mitchell knew he was blowing away most 90% of the guitar players that were on the circuit, and he was just kind of the unsung hero. But yeah, and there was the times where Pierre Trudeau was there at the Junos. It was a big thing. Big thing. There was a time where they only did it in Toronto. They only did it, I think, it was at the old, what used to be called the O'Keefe Center. Still there, by the way. I think I don't know how many names it's had. Hummingbird? I don't know, something like that. But yeah, those old Juno Award shows were great. Remember the controversy? There's a few other moments that I can remember. The controversy of Carol Pope being put on there was a whole thing during the New Wave era, the late 70s, 78, 79, and that era, that the Junos were still talking about Anne Murray, still talking about Murray McLaughlin and, Gordon Lightfoot, when there was this huge new wave of music coming through. And a lot of it was Canadian driven, not necessarily Canadian groups that were amazing coming out of the new wave scene, like the Parachute Club and and some of the punk stuff that was coming out of Canada, but just the fact that Canada embraced all that music. If you watch a great if you guys are into Canadian nostalgic music stuff, there's a CFNY radio, CFNY documentary. There you go. I can get my brain going in the Sunday morning. It's on YouTube right now. It's amazing, especially if you live in the area where I live in, the West End of Toronto and Brampton and all that. And I remember driving by that CFNY house so many times, Yellow House up there in Brampton, and then just a small radio station that just played whatever they wanted, and really a lot of artists basically credited their success to being played on CFNY, which didn't have a lot of range, just through Toronto, and eventually they hit the tower and got a wider range of broadcasting range. But just that was a huge part of Canada, that whole scene. And then what happened was, to just come full circle because I'm rambling, they didn't have Rough Trade and Carol Pope scheduled to be on the show. They just put them on because they started to feel like, well, maybe we're a little bit, dated here in our show, so they wanted to be a little bit more up, and then they did that. I don't know. I remember Burton Cummings walking out with his clean shaven with a haircut, and that was interesting. That was a new look for him all of a sudden, and he hosted the show. Lots of great hosts. I think one of the best hosts they had was Jan Arden. Jan Arden was a great host, hilarious. Alanis Morissette was actually a great host. She was pretty, she was funny too. Bare Naked Ladies hosting the show was really funny. Those are later ones, but the '70s ones, when I was a kid watching them, there was some entertaining stuff. Canadian music. I saw, Miles Goodwin up there carrying his guitar on. That was very cool. And some great performances too. And then of course, the Kiss of Death was the most promising artist, because I think back then, whoever got the most promising artist, you never heard from them again, right? It was kind of one of those things. Payolas were one of them. They had a short-lived career after getting and even the singer from the Payolas even said something about it, saying, "Hey, I heard this." I remember him saying clearly, "I heard this award is the Kiss Off, and but we'll be back." And never heard. I don't think the Payolas made their third, fourth album, but some great stuff. Bryan Adams cleaned up for a lot of years. Rush cleaned up for a lot of years. Triumph was on there. I'm not sure what they won, Juno-wise, but they were, nominated. I think a lot of people said in the '70s that there weren't a lot of Canadian acts that were on the mainstream, so certain acts were winning every year. And then when it came up to the end of the '70s, '77, '78, when the new wave was coming through, they thought, well, why are the Junos still talking about what they were calling, what that genre of music was calling dinosaur rock? And I like my dinosaur rock, so I'm not going to say much about that. But yeah, anyhow, the Juno Awards really celebrated all that. It was kind of the anti-Grammys, right? Because Grammys kind of the same thing at the Grammys. There was a lot of amazing rock bands like Aerosmith and Journey and all this great music coming out in the '70s, and really pop was winning the Grammys. I guess it hasn't really changed that much, has it? No, it hasn't. Anyhow, watch the Junos tonight. I am going to watch for the single hope that I see Geddy and Alex on there, and I think they're going to be on there. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, because I just saw something, and there's a big thing about social media these days. How much of it's real? How much of it's just people trying to get hits on their posts? And I don't know. And interesting. My kids are actually moving away from social media mostly because at some point in time, I think the human, even though it's not that great liking a lot of people out there these days, but you want a little bit more human interaction out there, and I think we've obviously lost all that. We've lost it all with social media, and my son said clearly there's kids younger than him that are just growing up on their screens, and that's all they know. It's classic. You'd be driving down the road and there'd be all this scenery, and people are still looking at their screens. So I wonder if that happens as you drive across the United States. Drive through the Grand Canyon and you're looking at a picture of the Grand Canyon on your phone. I don't know if that's really what we want and what we should be doing. So I think it's going to turn around soon, guys, especially with AI creating so much stuff that just doesn't look right or doesn't look real. So it's become, I think social media has become a unreal thing. There you go. Anyhow, how is everybody getting their way through March? The in like a lion, out like a lion. It was a lion the entire time of the month. Haven't really had any great weather. I had one of my students' parents talk about grass seed this week, and I was like, grass seed? I mean, I think I can remember shoveling not long ago, but yeah, we live in the Great Lakes region. Well, I do, anyways, but it's terrible. But anyhow, it's all about Canada. Hey, wave that flag. Wave that flag here. And Canadian music rocks. There'll probably not be a lot of rock stuff on tonight's show. Pop seems to dominate award shows. I think there's a band called The Beaches that's on there as a rock band, and maybe a couple others, but let's just keep the faith, so to speak. Let's keep the rock and roll faith going, and I think everybody who watches this probably is a rocker like me, and we get our as I always said, we get our teeth kicked in, but I don't think I'd rather be anywhere else but in the rock genre. I stayed in it all my life, and I continue to stay in it, and I'll still fight for that. Sadly, some rock bars are closing, rock venues are drying up. If you're a band playing in a rock band that's a bar band, it's getting to be a little tough out there, and my condolences to everybody who runs a small business and tries to keep it going, especially if you're a rock bar. Trying not to change your genre and trying to stay true to that, and still trying to fight the everyday battles of trying to get people in, especially with a bad economy. You know what, you're going to fill up your car with gas or go out for a beer. I think, when sensible people are probably filling up their car with gas so they can get to work the next day. So, and you know what the gas prices are like. So anyways, not to get political on my music show, but that is affecting our scene out there, and tickets to be bought, and bars to be full, and people to watch. So still, even if you have to pick and choose who you go out to see them, because they're still out there, and live music is better. Bumper stickers should be issued. Anyways, guys, have a great time. I guess I'll give you a Juno Award report next week. Take it easy. Have a good one. Bye-bye.